So I have a question in English
Yes.
that I never know how to use in a question. Have you or did you?
Mm-hmm.
So have you been? This I know, but otherwise I don't know when to use have or did.
Okay, so in English, we have this very useful grammatical function that distinguishes between things that happened and like a range of time talking about things and when they could have happened. The most common mistake people make is when they confuse the simple past tense, which is like, when did you go to America? You're talking about one event. Like last month, I went to California. So that's the simple past. I went to California last month. I saw my mother. I ate some food on the beach. All of these are single events I'm talking about in the past, right? Simple past. When you use have in that way, not like as a main verb, like I have a cup of golden milk right now. That's different, right? The have you're talking about is an auxiliary verb. It's modifying the grammar of the sentence. Did you go to America means something different than have you been to America? Do you know what the difference is?
No.
Do they feel different to you at all? Would you answer those questions any differently if someone asked you?
Have you been? It means more like you stay in one place, and did you go? It's more moving.
Did you go to America is asking me about a specific event. Like last month, I went to America, went to California. That's the event you're asking me about. If you say, did you go to America last month? Right? But if you say, have you been to America? What you're referencing now is a range of time in which I could have gone to America one or many times. And so usually the time indicator will not always, but often be included. So they might say like, have you ever been to America? Right? Now that's more clear, isn't it? Now it means like from the beginning of your life up until the present. Sometime in there, the event of you going to America might have happened, and maybe it happened more than once, right? It didn't specify a specific number of times, or right? And so that's a broader, more vague question. And then you might say, well, yeah, when I was 10 years old, I went to Wisconsin. And then, now that I know you're talking about a specific event, I might change to the simple past and say, well, what did you do in Wisconsin? Did you meet a lot of interesting people? Did you learn a new language? Now I'm saying did for all these instead of have you. Because now I'm talking about a specific thing that happened. You've identified the specific thing. So anytime you hear someone using have in that way, they're talking about a range of time, and sometimes the context makes very little difference, where you could ask either the simple past version or the present perfect version, and it means basically the same thing. Like, if you see me in the morning and you say, oh, good morning, have you eaten? What do you mean?
If you already eat something.
And if you say, did you eat?
For me, it's the same.
Yes, in that context, it's basically the same. Why though?
Because it will become.
Yeah, because the context is clear. When you say, have you eaten when you see me in the morning, you're clearly not asking, have you ever eaten? That would be a ridiculous question. Whereas if you ask, have you been to America, you probably mean ever, unless you're specifying, like, have you been to America this year, right? You could ask that, now you're shortening the time frame, right? But if you say, have you eaten, the intended meaning of the question is so obvious that you mean that day, that morning, right? Especially if it's the first time you're seeing me that morning, I know immediately that that's what you're asking me. So in this short range of time from the beginning of the morning until now when I'm seeing you, has food happened in your life, right? Did you eat at some point in that time frame? That's what you're asking. And same thing, if you just say, did you eat? Even if you're not specifying today, did you eat today? You might say that. Did you eat breakfast today? Right? But again, the context makes it obvious. Did you eat breakfast today? We're talking again about a specific event. We're just slightly changing the focus of the question, the emphasis. But it means functionally the same thing in that context. Did you eat? Have you eaten? Right? The answer you give will be the same.
Okay.
But did you go to America and have you been to America might mean very different things. See what I mean? Because now we're talking about a much potentially larger question.
Also, for some people who never came to America, like me, I never been to America. So if
I have never been to
I have never been,
or shortened to I've. But that's just the present perfect tense. Present perfect tense is the easiest. It always has the word have, and it's always talking about some point beginning in the past up until right now, the present when we're talking, right? That's what we call it, the present perfect. It comes right up to the present, but it starts in the past. But what if I say, had you been to America? Had you known him long?
How long?
Had you known him for a long time? Had you ever seen a bear in person before? Something's different now. What has changed if I say had instead of have?
had is the past of have. It's even.
So we are just curious about the past, not like 10 minutes ago. Like, if you ask like about the bear, is clear that we are not near a jungle or we are in something like we are in a big city. So it's not possible to see it 10 minutes ago or yesterday. It's like you've been in, I don't know, Kalavan. So maybe by chance it was possible to see a bear. So had you been a bear?
Seen a bear. I've never been a bear. No, probably been a human.
So like, oh my God.
Embarrassing mistakes are an important part of the video.
Had you ever been a bear? So I was a tiger.
So, if I use the present perfect, if I say, have you ever seen a bear? The meaning is pretty clear because it's just like, have you ever been to America, right? Like in your life, at any point from the beginning of your life up until now, the event of you seeing a bear, did that happen, right? You can say, no, I've never seen a bear, or yes, when I was 10, I went camping with my family and we saw a bear. And then I respond with, oh, had you ever seen a bear before that?
Is the time you mentioned that time or before that time?
Like for now, because you know that it's in the past, so we want to mention that in the past of the past.
Yes, that is the exact phrasing I use when I explain it. It's the past of the past. You got it. That makes up for your embarrassing mistake. Yes, and you're right too. So, all the perfect tenses involve some point in the past leading up to the moment the question applies to. In the present perfect, that moment is the present. That's why it's easy. Up until now, did this thing ever happen, right? Or since this particular time up until now, did it happen? If I say, have you been to America this year? I mean, since the beginning of this year, since January 1st, up until now, right? But if we're already talking about the past, when I was 10 years old and I went camping, that's the past, right? What if I want to go even further, back behind that? That's now our frame of reference, that event in the past. So any time from the beginning of your life up until you were 10 years old, this event in the past that we're referencing.
We're using had.
Yes, let me say had instead of have. So the present perfect, have you ever been, is the past up until the present. Had you ever is the past of the past. The past up until another time in the past. It sounds strange, but it's actually very useful. It's a very useful way to reference time.
No, the sense makes sense when you explain. It makes sense, like, because now you are not 10, for example, all of us, we are over 16.
Did they have any glasses?
And my Persian grammatically is not good. Like, I know it's very difficult, and I was always get E, F, E, D minus, so don't ask me. But probably something. I guess I figured out, like, it's wasting the time to translate from a language to a language, because it's different mindset of speaking. So we can say, like, it's like that, but it's like it's exactly like saying, cucumber is like eggplant. All of them is like this, and this is just green, and like, but actually the taste is different. Everything is different. So better to not translate. Otherwise, after a while, you get stuck to something and you cannot understand. Like you said, like, what is the difference between did you or have you?
What if I say, when you go to America next year, how many countries will you have been to?
Again?
What?
How many countries?
When you go to America next year, how many countries will you have been to?
It's future.
Yes. It's the past of the future. It's a past that hasn't happened yet.
How many?
We're talking about the future like it's the past, like it already happened.
I get to get in the question.
Can you repeat again? If you go to America,
When you go to America next year, so I'm setting the frame of reference in the future, next year, right?
will you have?
How many countries will you have been to? If I say in the present, how many countries have you been to? That's easy, right? Think about your whole life. You count the countries over this range of time. You answer, right? But if the moment is not now, but in the future next year, now you're acting like that future already happened, and you're answering it as though it already happened.
Yeah.
So right now I've been to 10 countries, but when I go to America next year, that will be one more country, so I will have been to 11. Or maybe I will go to 5 more countries before then, so maybe it will be 15 or 16 countries that I will have been to by then.
So when I go to America next year, it will be that I will have been. Really?
I will have been.
I will have been to 4 countries.
Unless you go to some other countries on the way to America, right?
Yeah, I said it on the answer. So yeah. Nice. Okay. It will have been. It will have been. And then Korean.
Yeah.
I think it will. What is the short term? It will have been.
It'll have been.
Really?
It'll works. It will. It'll have been. You could try to do a triple contraction there. It'll have. It's kind of slang. It's not really proper English, but that's how people talk. It'll. Yeah. Or have you heard of Yoldiv? It's a quadruple contraction. Yoldiv.
Yeah, there's. Have you?
You all would have.
You?
You all would have done the same thing as I did.
And
Y'all have done the same thing I did.
it's funny like the Turkish now.
So it will have. It'll.
Mom. But now in America, for example, speaking like this if they want to be formal?
No, it's not formal. It's especially like in the South. That's how people talk. Like,
Oh,
yeah. Or it could be sometime like in the hypothetical distant future. Oh, I've been trying to sell this house for years. By the time I finally sell it, I will have died from old age.
like,
Right? Don't know when, some point in the distant future. And of course, I'm exaggerating for dramatic comedic effect, right? But that works. I will have died from old age by the time I finally sell this house. But see, I think what makes this confusing for foreign learners is that most of these things that we phrase in, especially like the future perfect tense, that's what that's called, future perfect, could be phrased in other ways. Like I could say, I will die from old age before I sell this house. Just the simple future also works. Slightly different phrasing, slightly different emphasis, but it also works.
mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, I had seen a bear once before then, when I was 10 years old, you could just say, yeah, I saw a bear once before. I saw it when I was 10. I also saw one when I was 6. Right? So there are ways you can rephrase them, almost always, but there are times when it changes the meaning too much and the communication isn't as clear or it's not as formal. Right? So most of the time, when people don't know how to use the perfect tenses correctly, they default to one of the simple tenses and just make the conversation slightly more awkward or less clear, less specific. But you may miss some important meaning if you don't understand why someone is phrasing something in a perfect tense to talk about a range of time.
Is it like this? Like, have you been in the US, for example? We use that word, like, it's like, have you ever had this act of, there's, instead of did you? Then did you eaten?
Did you eat?
Did you eat or have you eaten? So did you eat like easily? Like did you?
Yeah.
Have you eaten in? Is it like the act? Did you have the act of eating? Or it's not like this?
No.
Why do you use have?
It's just, and again, in that case, it really doesn't make a difference with that specific question, but it is technically different. If you say, did you eat, you're talking about a specific event that occurred, the act of eating. If you say, have you eaten, you're talking about the day beginning and the time up until now. Somewhere in that range of time, this thing happening. And perfect tenses usually sound a bit more formal, too, because they're a little bit harder to conjugate, right? That's why we call them the simple tenses, because they're simpler, right? Now, what if we combine... Here's the fun part. What if we combine a perfect tense with a continuous, or sometimes called active tense? What does that mean?
What?
What?
One more time?
What?
What?
First of all, what is a continuous or active tense? What does that mean? Say something in the continuous tense.
Like it's not stopped yet.
It happens now. Continue.
It started in the past and still continuing. Like, can I have it?
What's the difference between I drink golden milk and I am drinking golden milk?
I drink is every day. It can be like every day, and I'm drinking is just the present moment.
Yeah, it could be a few things. There's some ambiguity, but generally, yes, the simple present means a general thing you do. Like I drink golden milk often.
But
And
if
say,
I
have it
say
for me.
I'm reading a book,
Yeah.
it's not this moment. It's
That puts emphasis on something you're actively doing. Like if I say I drink golden milk, it doesn't necessarily imply like that I'm doing it all the time. It just means like yes, something you do, right? But it may be like once a year you're doing it, right? That's where the ambiguity comes in. If you say, if someone like, do you drink? Like if somebody brings out a bottle of vodka and say, "Do you drink?" Does that mean, yeah, I'm a raging fucking alcoholic and I have a bottle of vodka every day? Or does it mean, yes, that is something I'm okay with doing and have done and generally enjoy doing, but maybe it's once a year. Who knows, right? That's the ambiguity. If you say, I am reading a book versus I read books, now you're saying that this is an active action in my life. Like you're in the process of it. Whereas if you say, yeah, I drink, it doesn't mean you're in the process of drinking. See the difference? And it can also mean that, yes, literally right now, that is the thing I'm doing, right? It could be either of those. So that's a continuous tense. Always ending with ing, ing. It makes them easy to identify. It's also where we get our gerunds from. The act of reading a book. I am reading. I enjoy reading. In that sentence, I enjoy reading. Reading is not a verb. It's a noun. Enjoy is the verb. I enjoy this action. What is the action called? Reading. Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
What makes English a little bit confusing, but actually also makes it very versatile, is that we can take verbs and turn them into other parts of speech very easily, often without changing anything about them. I am reading, I enjoy reading. Two completely different grammatical sentences. The reading child is more quiet and well-behaved than the video game playing child.
What? The reading child?
The reading child. Now reading is an adjective. It's you describing the child who reads, the reading child.
Nice. The reading child.
The talking man, that's me. The man who talks a lot. Way too much, really. So, how do we combine an ing verb doing something with a perfect tense?
I was reading.
No, that's simple. No, that's past continuous. I was reading, I am reading, I will be reading. All of those are past, present, future, continuous. You still need have somewhere in there.
What was the question, sir?
How do we combine have with ing? And what does it change about the meaning of the sentence?
Have you ever reading a book?
You're close, but no. Close.
Have you ever reading a book?
Just try combining every syllable in every possible way. Eventually you'll get it.
Having.
No.
No, we don't have one.
Oh, by the way, we don't have having.
You can do that if you're using the verb have in a perfect tense, because have is also its own verb. I have a cup, right? I have a child. I have tuberculosis.
Where is the ing?
No, that's not. I am having a baby. That would be the continuous, the active, right? But now if you're going to make that a perfect tense, you need two haves. Have you ever had a baby?
Right.
Ask you about the thing.
Okay, so if there is a baby right there, we cannot ask like this. We should say, do you have a baby? Because it's not. We can see it. Or we are doctor, we cannot say. I confused. I get confused.
I am confused, or I got confused.
I got confused.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a doctor, a lady coming to me, and
A lady is coming, or a lady comes?
a lady comes.
Don't make any jokes.
Yeah, a lady comes to me, and I asked me, and I want to ask her, like,
To her or ask her?
Ask her. Good job.
and I want to ask her, like, is there any baby in your...
So
Are you pregnant?
that is a valid question to ask. Like semantically and grammatically, that makes sense. Is there a baby inside you? But that is not how most people talk.
But imagine, did you ever, like, have you ever had a baby? Like, I want to know because it will change my...
Yes. So yes, that's a good question to ask. Have you ever had a baby? Now again, you're talking about the range of time, her whole life, an event. What is the event? The event of having a baby. Did that happen at any point in her life?
But what if I want to ask right now, like, do you have a baby right now?
Do you mean, is she pregnant right now? Do you
yes,
mean
yes,
that
yes,
she has a
yes.
child at home? Because usually when we say we have children, I have 2 children. They are 7 and 10 years old, 1 boy and 1 girl.
Yeah, no. Like, are you pregnant? Not asking.
So then, you wouldn't say, do you have a child to indicate pregnancy? You would say, are you pregnant? You might say, are you with child? That's kind of an antiquated expression. Like
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That example.
Okay.
And you can cut because give us this opportunity to cut.
Now we're going to leave this in. This is gold, as golden as my milk.
Yeah.
What is the difference between how long have you played guitar and how long have you been playing guitar? I.
It means how long have you played guitar? The time, that the years.
Yeah, so it's just like, have you ever been to America? Like, I'm asking, where's the beginning point of you playing guitar, right? Since I was 7. You use since there.
How long have you
Played
played?
guitar. I have played guitar since I was 7.
How many time you playing guitar?
No. How much time is what you
How
mean?
much time you spend for learning?
But does that mean that I play 8 hours every day since I was 7? Or does it just mean that that's when I started playing and I haven't stopped in general sense, like I drink coffee generally, not like every moment of every day I'm drinking coffee?
Can I ask you to repeat again the both?
Or no, but I can.
I have played guitar since I was 7. That means 7 was the beginning point up until the present, right? And what if I say I have been playing guitar a long time?
So, you play guitar for a long time, but it doesn't. You don't want to say when. From which year?
Since when?
Since when?
But why do I say I haven't been playing? Why don't I just say I have played?
No.
It's very similar to your example with the book.
Like
I am reading a book.
it's different with I used to play. I used to play guitar, but now I didn't.
I have played guitar is more vague, more ambiguous, because again, it could mean you play once in a while. Sometimes you just started when you were 7 and now once in a while you pick up a guitar. Or it could mean you play every single day of your life. Right? Same thing with, I drink. What does that mean? It means you're not opposed to drinking, at the very least I know that, right? But I don't know if that means you drink all the time or a little bit or what, right? Same thing if I say I read books or I am reading a book. Actively in the process of something. If I say I have been playing guitar for 1 year, for a long time, since I was 7, doesn't matter the time frame, it's putting emphasis on an active process. Someone who has been playing guitar is indicating to you that it's something they still do regularly. They started doing it regularly and they still do it regularly. If they just used the simple past, like, yeah, I played guitar for a long time, that implies they don't play anymore. I played guitar for a long time, then I injured my hand and I haven't since. 10 years ago I injured my hand and I haven't played guitar since then. But I did play for a long time and I was pretty good at it. See, we're indicating all these subtle things about the relationship with time. And all these things are 100% completely easily understandable to every native English speaker, but few of them can begin to explain it the way I've been explaining it to you. The way I've been explaining it to you. What did I just say? That wasn't even intentional. The way I have been explaining it to you now, during this conversation. The way I have been explaining it to you. Why did I phrase it that way? What does that mean? I could have said, the way I am explaining it to you now, right? That would have made sense. I'm actively in the process of explaining it to you. I could have said, the way I explained it to you earlier in this conversation. That would be the simple past. The way I have explained it to you, again, similar thing, but emphasizing a range of time since the beginning of this conversation up until now. That's the range of time, similar to have you eaten. But I said, the way I have been explaining it to you. Started at the beginning of this conversation, and it's been an active process that continues right up until this moment, still going on right now. I am still explaining it to you right now.
Okay, so
What was the like? If you stop explaining to us 10 minutes ago,
Then I would have said, I have explained to you, or I explained to you.
and now
Because I'm still doing it. And the
Yeah.
whole time, since the beginning of this conversation, it's been an active process. I have been explaining. I am still explaining.
put your face.
How long will you have been playing guitar by your next birthday? Will you have been playing? Future perfect continuous. How long will you have been playing guitar by your next birthday?
Can I say 2 years?
Yeah, that's a valid answer, but do you understand the answer you're giving me?
I played
I will have been playing.
fuck.
Sorry, for the future, right? My next birthday, in the future. I will have been playing.
I will have been played. I will have been played guitar
Will have been playing guitar.
for 2 years.
Yes. Again. Now you're projecting into the future, saying it's an active process that happened, is happening, and will continue happening until this point in the future. I will have been explaining this very simple grammatical concept to you for a year by the time you finally get it. That's an exaggeration. Like, I will die from old age by the time I sell my house. I will have been explaining this for a year by the time you get it. Like, this conversation will keep going for 1 year. I won't stop. It will be an active process.
So it will have been about and if not, there's also cooking.
Is cooking? Was cooking? Will have been cooking?
If Nadesh will cook,
Uh-huh.
then tomorrow lunch and dinner will include today. I should say you will have been cooking today from today. Really?
Right. You will have been cooking. Since is probably the word you're looking for.
since.
Since indicates the beginning
Since
point.
today.
Yeah.
No. You
What?
can have.
If
like,
today
I
is
want
when
to
she
say,
started,
if
yes.
you cook also tomorrow, it's 2 days that you
Will
chef.
have been cooking for 2 days in a row.
You will.
If you cook tomorrow, you will have been cooking for 2 days in a row.
In a row?
Together in a series, in a sequence. In a row. It's a common expression. You've never heard that? No. I'm often surprised by the very basic English expressions that foreigners don't know, because I use them all the time. And if you watch a show like Friends, you've certainly heard them say things like this. Have you ever been having sex when your mom walks in and interrupts you?
Yes, actually.
Yes? So, what did I just do there? An active process, something that was or does sometimes actively happen, actively in the process of having sex when something else happens. An interruption. I'm talking about two things happening simultaneously.
Hey, can you repeat again, Barbara?
Have you ever been having sex? So that's different than have you ever had sex, right? That's an easy question to answer. Like, have you ever been to America? Have you ever had sex, right? This event happened at any point in the past, right? Now, have you ever been having sex when something else happens? Actively engaged in a process. It could be anything. I'm just using sex as an example. Have you ever been reading a book when you suddenly have to sneeze on the pages? Right? Right? So again, these subtle differences can make a difference because I'm trying to indicate an active process that gets interrupted by something else.
My gun.
Had you been making a lot of money when you were fired from your job last year?
Pardon?
Had you been making a lot of money when you were fired from your job last year?
It was taught him. It was good.
How?
Had you been, so past perfect. Now last year is the time frame. Last year, had you been making a lot of money when you were fired from your job?
My God, I should see it. Maybe about 10. And then horse tasting.
I'm afraid.
So new. Okay, can you write see?
What do you want me to write? What do we noticed it? That's the plan here. Had you
Can you start?
last? Okay, we'll start with the time frame. Last year. This is a very awkward angle to write it. Had you been making a lot of money when you were fired from your job? Question mark.
Right. Had you been making a lot of money?
Actively involved in a process, just like, have you ever been having sex when your mom walks in? Interrupted when you were fired. Different event happening at the same time that you're actively involved in something else.
When you were fired. So this is simple past simple.
Yeah. And again, the reason why you have never had to know this before is because there are other ways to rephrase these things. You could ask the equivalent of this question just by saying, were you making a lot of money last year? Before you were fired, were you making a lot of money? Something like that. I was making a lot of money last year, then I got fired. Right? There's always other ways you could rephrase this, right?
Yeah.
But this is a more dynamic and precise and interesting way to phrase things. I tend to write really long, complex sentences in my books. Some people say, you're just trying to sound smart. Or maybe I'm just expressing things in a more detailed and interesting way, because that's how I think, and I'm an intelligent person.
Have you been making? It was a good. Exactly.
Was it good for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Careful.
She looks happy. Yeah, I think we reached the climax of the lesson.